Trump stepped on stage expecting to dominate. What he didn't expect was for Jasmine Crockett to quietly speak truths so unshakable he'd have no place left to hide. The Phoenix Convention Center buzzed with a tense kind of energy. Not the anticipatory thrill of a concert, but something more brittle. Conversation was sparse. Camera operators ran final lens checks, and political aides hovered over their phones like battlefield commanders waiting for the first missile. Backstage, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat alone in a cold green room. Her navy blazer was crisply pressed, her makeup understated, her posture composed. Resting in her lap was a slim, worn manila folder, light in weight but heavy in meaning. She watched the countdown on the mounted TV. Town hall debate. 7 minutes. Across. The hallway, Trump had arrived with his usual presence. Loud, boisterous, familiar. Laughter trailed behind him as he made offhand remarks about Arizona heat and exchanged quick handshakes. His team followed in his wake, some posturing for importance, others clearly trying to stay out of his line of fire. In Jasmine's room, the quiet remained. Her campaign manager, Daria Fields, stepped in. "You ready?" Jasmine glanced up. "I've been ready." Daria hesitated before closing the door behind her. "You sure you want to go there tonight?" Jasmine didn't answer. "Right away." Her fingers gently traced the edge of the folder. "People forget what he did," she said. "But the ones who lived through it, they don't forget. They just keep living with it." Daria nodded, slow and heavy. "Then we go in with clarity. No distractions. Keep your mic tight. Don't let him turn this into theater." Jasmine gave a small, steady smile. "He can have the theater. I brought records." Out in the main hall, hundreds of seats had filled. The audience was eclectic. Retirees in custom-made signs, Gen Z activists live-streaming on tablets, small business owners in polos, families quietly seated together, curious. At exactly 7:00 p.m., the host took the stage. "Good evening, Arizona, and welcome to our National Town Hall, broadcast live across the country. Please welcome former President Donald J. Trump and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett." Trump strode out first, all showmanship, double thumbs up, broad grins, his signature confidence in full display. The applause was loud, predictable. Jasmine followed just after, quiet but grounded. No waving, no theatrics, just a nod to the audience and a measured step to her podium, where she rested the manila folder with deliberate care. She didn't open it. Not yet. The moderator explained the format. 2 hours, alternating answers, no interruptions. Trump rolled his eyes at that. The crowd laughed. Jasmine remained still, face unreadable, eyes scanning the room. "Congresswoman Crockett," the moderator began, "what would you say is the greatest flaw in America's current economic system?" Jasmine's voice was calm, even. "Economic collapse rarely begins at the bottom. It starts at the top, with closed-door decisions, with deals made in silence, and with the consequences falling hardest on those who had no seat at the table." Her words didn't rise, but they settled over the room like weight. Trump jumped in, predictably. "Oh, please. The biggest failure is letting people like her pretend they know the first thing about building an economy. I've created jobs. Thousands. What's she done? Talked about it?" The crowd laughed. Some clapped. Others stayed quiet. Jasmine didn't react. She waited for the noise to pass, then leaned forward slightly. "You've created jobs. You've also erased them. Sometimes in the same zip code, on the same project." The moderator moved to the next question, but the tone had shifted. Trump did what he always did. He performed. He interrupted, laughed, bragged, spoke in sweeping absolutes. "We had the strongest economy in history. Then it got wrecked. You all lived it. And now we're supposed to listen to someone who read about it in a college textbook?" The audience reacted. Applause, laughter, but not as loud. Jasmine stood steady. No visible frustration. When it was her turn, she focused on data. Wage stagnation, housing costs, and job losses in rural towns and inner cities alike. Trump interrupted again. Look at her, reading from a binder. That's cute. You don't run a country with folders. You run it with guts. More laughter. Less this time. Jasmine didn't flinch. She spoke clearly. You can run it with guts. But if you don't use your brain, you run it off a cliff. This time, applause came fast. Some from his side, too. The moderator redirected. Let's talk about ethics in leadership. Trump jumped in again. FBI, censorship, lawsuits. Sometimes you settle, he said offhand. Not because you did anything wrong. It's just easier. Write a check, move on. Big companies do it all the time. That line caught Jasmine's attention. No sudden motion. But her fingers finally touched the folder. The moderator turned to her. Congresswoman, is settlement behavior relevant to public ethics? She looked at him, then the crowd, then the camera. Most Americans don't get to settle things quietly. If your landlord overcharges, you take the hit. If your boss cuts hours, you tighten the belt. So when someone like him dismisses settlements like receipts, yeah, it matters. The room stilled. No soundbite. Just truth. Trump tried to jump back in, but this time, the moderator cut him off. You'll have your chance in a moment, Mr. Trump. A flash of something passed across Trump's face. Not fear, but frustration. The room felt it. From there, his rhythm faltered. He mocked the idea of systemic racism, met with silence, accused the moderator of bias, murmurs, not support, called Jasmine another angry voice, and a man in the front row, MAGA hat in hand, simply stood and walked, out not angry, not protesting, just done. Jasmine saw it, didn't react. She didn't need to, because now the room was shifting, not because she raised her voice, but because she hadn't. Then came the question that opened the door. Congresswoman Crockett, how should leadership respond to economic collapse? Like, in 2008? She adjusted her mic, took a breath. My father lost our home in 2009. He wasn't reckless. He was a mechanic in Santa Fe, worked every day. But when the layoffs came and the bank showed up with papers he couldn't understand, it didn't matter. He wasn't on anyone's bailout list. The room went silent, even the pro-Trump side. She continued, I'm not here to perform. I'm here because I lived through it, and I brought what others tried to forget. Her fingers unlatched the folder, inside, receipts, depositions, contracts, dates. The kind of truths that don't need volume, they just need light. She had them now. My father never bounced back. Not really. He worked until his knees gave out, until the pain in his back made him sleep sitting up. I carry that with me. Every vote I cast, every speech I give, every time I meet someone just barely holding on while someone else sits on wealth they didn't earn, just manipulated into place. She didn't blink as she turned to Trump. Some of us never had the luxury of just writing a check and walking away. Trump shifted in his seat, arms crossed, eyes suddenly elsewhere. Jasmine leaned in, her voice low and exact. I remember a man named Robert E. Langham, security guard at one of your Tucson properties, got injured on the job. His claim? Denied. His calls? Ignored. When he sued? You dragged it out until his savings ran dry. He settled, quietly, signed papers that said he could never talk about it again. She paused. But I'm not Robert, and I can talk about it. The moderator looked momentarily stunned. Trump sat back, searching her face, trying to figure out how she knew that name. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Jasmine opened the folder, not wide, just enough to pull out a single page, a photocopy of a dated legal document. She held it lightly, but her voice was firm. I've read through dozens of these. Real people, real pain, buried under settlements, NDAs and legal fees they couldn't afford. Each one a story of how power isn't just used to build, but to bury. She began to name them. Yolanda Reyes, Las Cruces, administrative assistant, fired while on medical leave. Brian Walker, Mesa, renovated your golf club, never paid. Took half of what he was owed. Gregory Hunt, Tempe, reported unsafe. Conditions, fired. Silenced with a non-disparagement clause so tight it nearly ended his career. She looked at the moderator. You asked about leadership during a crisis? Here's the truth. Who you are in rooms with no cameras. That's who you really are in the rooms that matter. Trump laughed uneasily, waving a hand. Oh, give me a break. Everyone gets sued. You don't build towers without a little friction. You think she's never signed something to shut somebody up? Please, welcome to politics. Jasmine didn't flinch. There's a difference between shutting someone up and shutting them down. And most Americans already know what that feels like. Told to forget it. Told to move on. Told to take the hit and be quiet. The air shifted. Not with spectacle, but with recognition. The kind that lands in the chest and doesn't leave. A woman in the fourth row, blue cardigan, mid-40s, nodded slowly. She hadn't clapped all night, but her eyes hadn't left Jasmine, and for the first time Trump looked unsure of what came next. The moderator cleared his throat, trying to reassert order. Congresswoman Crockett, are you saying these cases directly influenced Mr. Trump's political decisions? Jasmine answered without hesitation. I'm saying when you use silence as currency long enough, it becomes how you see people. And if you treat workers as disposable in business, don't be surprised when you treat them the same way in government. No, claps this time. Just the quiet kind of listening that means people aren't watching anymore. They're remembering. Jasmine set the document down. Not tucked away, face up, visible, then pulled out another. I want to talk about someone else, she said. Darrell Linwood, construction manager, Amarillo, Texas. Trump gave a dismissive scoff. Never heard of him. You wouldn't, she said, eyes still on the page. But he remembers you. She unfolded the next sheet. Darrell was contracted in 2013 to oversee a development. Luxury condos your company promised would bring jobs and growth to Amarillo. You gave a speech, wore a hard hat, took the photos. She looked up. 6 months later? No permits, no environmental study, no final payments to vendors. Just gone. Darrell was left holding the bag. The community blamed him. He lost 2 more. Contracts, his marriage, eventually his home. Trump leaned in, voice sharp. I don't know this guy. And if something went wrong, maybe he didn't do his job. You don't get to pin every failed deal on me. Jasmine didn't blink. No, that's how your construction works. She lifted a yellowed newspaper clipping. Amarillo Globe News, 2014. Developer pulls out. City left in limbo. People don't remember this story, she said, because it didn't happen in LA or DC. It happened in a place the cameras don't go, but it happened, and the damage stayed. The moderator stepped in again. Congresswoman, are these isolated incidents? They're not isolated, she cut in. They're ignored, beat. And I haven't even gotten to the veterans yet. That word landed like a shot. Trump stiffened. His hand found his water bottle. He drank. Jasmine pulled out a tabbed file, colored flags marking each entry. In 2016, a property in Bakersfield, California, purchased under a holding company, linked to your group, was set to become a luxury retreat. But that land already housed a transitional shelter for veterans recovering from addiction and PTSD. She paused. The nonprofit running it had a temporary lease. You terminated it 4 months early, claimed the land needed upgrades, promised to relocate the program, but you didn't. Her voice didn't rise. Half of them ended up in shelters. 3 of them died. One of their names was Julius Marquez. She turned to the camera. His daughter is watching tonight. The room froze. Trump blinked. Jasmine placed the file next to the others. Quiet, deliberate. These aren't mistakes, she said. They're patterns. Trump spoke again, voice lower now. You don't know the full story behind any of those deals. You're reading headlines, cherry-picking facts to make me look like the villain. Thousands of people worked on those projects, made good money. Jasmine didn't waver. I'm not here to make you a villain. I'm here to make the victims visible. Silence, not applause, not pushback. Just that still, air-thick kind of silence, when a room is actually feeling something. A young man in the back stood and whispered to the woman beside him. Then he walked out, not angry, just done. The moderator tried to recover. Mr. Trump, would you like to respond before we move on? Trump waved it off. She wants to drag up construction drama from a decade ago. I want to talk about the future. Nobody cares about this stuff. Jasmine arched an eyebrow. Tell that to Julius Marquez's daughter. She could have stopped there. But what came next would make even Trump stop pretending not to care. The folder was half empty now, but each page Jasmine laid down had added weight to the room. Not in volume, but in gravity. She placed both hands flat on the podium, then looked up. How many of you here tonight have ever signed a contract you didn't fully understand? Dozens of hands went up. Not as protest, but as lived truth. She nodded. Most people don't have lawyers to read the fine print. No advisors, no loopholes, no PR teams. When something goes wrong, they don't land on their feet. They hit concrete, and they stay there. Trump scoffed louder this time. Oh, come on. This is turning into a therapy session. It's supposed to be about leadership, not sob stories. But no one laughed. Not this time. Jasmine reached into the folder again. This time. She pulled out a thicker stack, stapled reports, photos, receipts, and the room leaned in without even knowing it. She held the papers up slowly, deliberately. This is from a project in Glendale, Arizona, 2015. A Trump-affiliated firm partnered with a developer to build a luxury senior living community. She let the pause linger, flipping through the stapled documents. They broke ground, took deposits from over 120 families. Some sold their homes to prepare, believed what they were promised. A quiet intake of breath rippled through the room. Then the funding dried up. The builder vanished. Your company disappeared. The land is still empty. She looked up. Most of those families never got their deposits back. Some were too tired to fight. Others couldn't afford to. One man died still trying. Another pause. His son is here tonight. You could feel the air shift. Tighten. Trump stared across the stage. When he spoke, his voice had slowed. That deal wasn't even in my name. It was a licensing agreement. If someone else mishandled the money, that's not on me. Jasmine turned slightly, gaze sharp. You were at the groundbreaking. Promoted it on social media. Your name was on the sign at the entrance. Her tone hardened. But when it collapsed, when families lost everything, you vanished. That's the pattern. Profit from the illusion. Abandon the reality. Trump didn't speak. She reached back into the folder. "This," she said, holding up a page, "is a transcript from a 2017 fraud case deposition in Pinal County." She read without looking up. "Under oath, you were asked if you knew about unpaid workers on your construction projects. You answered, 'That's not my problem. That's a contractor issue.'" She let the words settle in the air. Leadership isn't about avoiding blame when it's inconvenient. It's about owning what happens under your name, even when it hurts. A lone clap sounded in the second row, then stopped, as if unsure. Trump tried to rally. People got hurt under every president, every CEO. That's life. That's business. Jasmine stepped closer to the mic. "No, that's business your way." She reached for the final item, a photo, slightly curled at the edges. This man's name was Louis Bratcher, concrete worker, Henderson, Nevada, one of your sites, clocked in every day for 6 weeks. Her voice was steady now, but the weight behind it grew. Then the subcontractor disappeared. Louis never got paid, not once. She set the photo down gently. He died in 2020, liver failure, couldn't afford consistent treatment. His wife still works the front desk at a hotel 3 blocks from here. Trump shifted. He didn't speak. His color had changed. The moderator cleared his throat, but Jasmine spoke first. "No." She turned. "To the crowd. People like Louis never get a break. They just keep working, keep believing, until they can't anymore." She paused, looked back at Trump. "And this man, he wants your vote, wants you to forget. But I won't, and I won't let you." The moderator, finally. "We'll move to closing remarks shortly." Trump leaned back, adjusted his jacket, tried to smirk, but it faltered. Behind Jasmine, the folder now nearly empty, rested like a verdict. Then, the pressure broke. Trump gripped the podium, tapped his fingers, fast, then slower, like trying to remember a rhythm that used to calm him. The moderator turned. "Mr. Trump, would you like to respond?" Trump inhaled, tried to steady himself. "Look, I've built more than any of these so-called leaders. There's always a few people who get hurt. That's the cost of building real success." His voice cracked on the word success. He reached for his water bottle. Jasmine didn't flinch. Her folder was shut. She didn't need anything else. Trump went on, desperate now. "What you're hearing, it's cherry-picked stories. Every president makes hard calls. I made money. I made deals. I brought jobs." He faltered again. This attempt to make me a monster. It's political theater. That's all it is. She's desperate, trying to build her name off mine." He turned to the audience. "You all see it, right?" But no one answered. The moderator tried to shift gears. "Let's move to closing remarks, starting with Congresswoman." But Trump cut in again, this time faster, erratic. "I've been attacked my whole life. Fake news, biased courts, career politicians who don't build anything but headlines." He grabbed the podium tighter now. "They're afraid. That's why they come for me, because I don't bow down." Then it happened. A misstep. Small, a half step back, off balance. His left hand reached for the top of the podium, missed the center. He staggered. The moderator froze. Jasmine's expression didn't change, but her eyes flicked toward the edge of the stage. Trump's aide was already moving. A low "whoa" came from the second row. Trump let out a sharp breath, wavered. Aide reached him, whispered something urgent. Trump waved him off, but the message was clear. He wasn't in control anymore. The moderator lowered his voice. "Would you like to step backstage, sir?" Trump blinked, sweating now, colorless. He reached for the railing too fast, caught himself. 2 aides flanked him, whispering, guiding. At the edge of the curtain, he turned, not to the audience, not to the cameras, but to Jasmine. She didn't move. He held her gaze. Too long. As if trying to say something he couldn't form. Then he vanished behind the curtain. The room exhaled. But no one stood. The moderator's voice was tight. "We'll take a short pause while Mr. Trump is evaluated backstage. Thank you for your patience." The feed stayed live. And Jasmine, she simply reached down, closed the folder. Nothing dramatic. Just the quiet end of a long chapter of silence. She looked at the crowd, then back to the moderator. "I'm ready to finish my remarks," she said. But the moment had already rewritten itself. Backstage, chaos. On stage. Calm. Jasmine didn't leave. She took a breath. "I didn't come here to make a man stumble," she said, voice quiet. "I came because too many people already have." The cameras stayed on her. I didn't spend 3 weeks building that folder to create a moment like this. I did it because someone had to say it. Out loud. In a place where it couldn't be. Deleted, edited, or buried. It didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded like release. Then she stepped back from the podium, walked to the edge of the stage. And the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. Her team was waiting when she slipped behind the curtain, but the mic still caught her voice as she leaned into Daria, her campaign manager. "That was for my dad. That was the moment. Not the stumble. Not the collapse. Not the walk-off." By the time she reached the dressing room, the clip had already spread. Dozens of Twitter accounts, YouTube live streams reacting in real time. Some called it the Crockett moment, others, the collapse. But the substance was the same. Clips of Jasmine's quiet dismantling of those broken promises played on repeat, especially the stories of the veterans, the father who never got his refund, the man who died waiting. TikTok lit up. Edits, some solemn, some cutting, some reverent. Within an hour, Darka Sanchez Jasmine Crockett was trending nationwide. Then, globally. Folder Truth, Marquez's daughter. Even people who hadn't seen the debate were seeing the screenshots, the quotes, the 15-second clip of Trump being helped off stage, while Jasmine stood still as stone behind him. Late-night hosts pivoted hard. One joked, "When they say the truth will set you free, they usually don't mean from the stage." But most of the tone was different, not amused, stunned. On MSNBC, a retired Marine turned analyst said, "That wasn't just a political moment, that was a reckoning." CNN's panel split down the middle. One called it calculated character assassination. Another simply said, "She didn't attack, she revealed." Fox News stuck to Trump's condition, overworked, maybe heat exhaustion. But even among loyal viewers, the comments cut through. "I voted for him twice, but I can't defend that tonight." Why didn't he answer about the veterans? She didn't yell, she didn't mock, she just spoke. And I listened. Even pundits who built careers mocking woke liberals admitted it on air. Jasmine wasn't angry. She was prepared. By 10:45 p.m., Jasmine's phone had 97 missed calls. Her inbox froze under the weight of staffers, pastors from back home, old professors, and one email from a woman in Bakersfield. "Thank you for saying his name. My husband worked with Julius." Jasmine sat alone on a bench outside the venue, staring at the concrete. Daria handed her a jacket. "They're already asking for interviews. CNN, The Guardian, even 60 Minutes. Jasmine didn't look up. "They'll try to make it theater," Daria said. "Make it about the fall, the drama." Jasmine nodded. "Then we make sure the focus stays on the people, the ones nobody lets speak." Daria smiled faintly. I don't think you have to worry about that anymore. Jasmine raised a brow. Daria showed her the phone. A message from the editor-in-chief of a major paper. You didn't just show up. You changed the conversation. But Jasmine didn't care about conversations. She was still carrying a promise. The ride back to Tempe was quiet. A black SUV, modest, rental campaign standard. No armor, no frills. Just enough to get from one moment to the next. Outside, strip malls blurred past. A pawn shop with a flickering sign. Gas stations. Nothing remarkable, except the silence. It felt heavier than the headlines. Her phone kept buzzing. Daria had silenced notifications an hour ago. Still, the screen lit up every few seconds. Interview requests, statements of support, even a few veiled threats. Yeah, want to debrief now? Daria asked from the front seat. Or in the morning? Jasmine stared out the window. No debrief, she said. I just want to sit with it. The hotel was quiet, older than it looked online, but clean. Jasmine had stayed here before, back when she was still doing pro bono housing cases, still chasing justice with nothing but a legal pad and a voice. At the front desk, a young woman gave her a wide-eyed nod. Jasmine returned it with a soft smile, said nothing. Inside the room, she peeled off her blazer, tossed it over the armchair, kicked off her shoes, and sat on the bed. Finally, she exhaled. Not relief. More like, the spinning has stopped. The noise is finally low enough to think again. Daria walked in, laptop in hand. Emails from NBC, CBS, a paper in Tucson. I told them we'd circle back. Jasmine didn't respond right away. She looked down at her hands. They were steady now. They hadn't been earlier. Not from nerves. From something else. You okay? Daria asked. Jasmine looked up. Her eyes weren't wet, but they were heavy. Remember the story I told you about my uncle? The VA loan denial? No, the other one. She reached into her purse and pulled out an old wallet photo. Edges frayed, color faded. A man standing in front of a rusted truck, holding a toddler. Both of them smiling like the world hadn't caught up yet. That's Uncle Ray. He was a welder. Got work on one of Trump's projects in Reno, back in the 90s, before the TV show, before the campaign. She flipped the photo over. In faded ink, Ray and JJ. Summer before the storm. They fired half the crew. Said the contract fell through. Ray kept calling, wrote letters. By the time he got a lawyer, the project had a new name, a new company. The paperwork? Gone. She stared at the floor. He lost his truck, his house, started drinking. My aunt left. That little boy. JJ. He's doing 15 years in Huntsville now. Ray died in a rented room above a hardware store. Only ones at the funeral were me and the guy who used to mow his lawn. Jasmine folded the photo, slid it back into her wallet. So when I say this isn't political for me, I mean it. It's not about parties. It's not about airtime. It's about people like Ray. And every time someone says I'm too emotional or dramatic, I think of how many Rays are still out there, waiting for someone to say their name. Daria leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Well, you said it loud and clear. Jasmine shook her head. No, I just didn't let it get buried. They sat in silence, the soft hum of the AC the only sound. Eventually, Daria stood and reached for the remote. Want to see the coverage? Jasmine shook her head again. I already know what it looks like. I just hope they saw what mattered. She pulled the hotel notepad from the nightstand, jotted something down, and slipped it into the folder. It read, Don't forget Ray, but rest would be short. Morning brought something else. Something Jasmine hadn't planned for, She woke before sunrise. Phone face down on the nightstand, still buzzing. She didn't reach for it. Instead, she pulled open the curtains and stood barefoot on the carpet, Tempe stretched out below in morning haze, still muted, untouched by headlines. No noise, no spin, just the world waking up. She turned on the faucet, splashed water on her face, looked at herself in the mirror. She didn't look powerful, she looked worn, but beneath that, clear-eyed. When Daria knocked, coffee in hand, the storm outside had already picked up. "They're calling it the most impactful political moment of the decade," Daria said. She handed her the cup. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Who's they?" Daria smiled, flipping open her laptop. "Take your pick." She clicked 3 tabs, MSNBC, ABC, the Arizona Republic, and the day was just beginning. All the headlines led with the same image. Jasmine standing at the podium, folder open, eyes steady. In the background, Trump stumbled, caught mid-fall by his aide. No caption was needed. The photo told its own story. "I didn't want the collapse to be the story," Jasmine said quietly, sipping her coffee. "I wanted the people to be." "They're both the story," Daria replied. "But yours is the one that's sticking." She turned her laptop toward Jasmine. A message blinked at the top of the screen. One from a senior producer at Meet the Press, requesting a full Sunday segment. Below that, a direct message. "I'm Julius Marquez's daughter." You said his name. I didn't think anyone ever would. I just wanted to say thank you. I cried last night. I think my father would have been proud to be remembered. Rochelle Marquez Jasmine stared at the message for a long time. Her hands didn't move. Then, softly, "He should have never been forgotten in the first place." The campaign's media director called soon after. Interview offers, potential endorsements, even careful overtures from politicians who hadn't returned a call in months. Now they wanted to build something bold. Jasmine let Daria handle it all. She had something else on her mind. By mid-morning, she asked to make a brief statement. Nothing flashy, no questions, just something honest. A local news crew met her in the courtyard behind the hotel. She wore a simple white blouse and jeans. No podium, no folder, just her. Looking straight into the camera, she spoke. Last night wasn't about a political win. It wasn't about a moment. It was about people. Working people who've been told their pain doesn't matter. I didn't plan for what happened, but I'm not surprised. The weight of so many truths finally knocked something loose. She paused. We cannot keep pretending silence is strength. That looking away is leadership. If we want better, we have to name what's broken, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Then she nodded at the cameraman and stepped away. No applause. She wasn't performing. Back in her hotel room, another message waited. This one from Denise Hall, a woman in Oklahoma. Her husband, a contractor, had worked on a failed Trump golf resort near Broken Arrow. He lost everything. She had never told the full story. Until now, Jasmine read it 3 times, then replied, "I'm listening. I always will." Daria looked up from her phone. "You know, you could run." "For what?" Jasmine asked, half smiling. "Whatever you want." "I just want people to stop getting steamrolled. Forgotten." Daria nodded. "Maybe that's exactly why you should." Jasmine didn't answer. She reached for the folded note she'd written the night before. "Don't forget Ray," and slipped it into her coat pocket. Because this wasn't the end. It wasn't even the peak. This was the beginning of a conversation America had avoided for far too long. By evening, Jasmine finally had a moment to herself. Her team had stepped out to grab dinner, and the room was quiet. Muted TV screens cycled through the previous night's footage, anchors debating, analysts dissecting it like game film from a championship match. Jasmine wasn't watching. Instead, she sat at the small desk, flipping through printed emails and handwritten letters rushed in by staff. Most were predictable. Supporters, critics, columnists, searching for a narrative. But one envelope stood out. Pencil handwriting. No return address. On the back, scrawled in blocky all-capital letters. "My mom said to write to the lady who spoke." Truth Jasmine opened it slowly. Inside was a letter in bright blue ink on lined notebook paper, sprinkled with little stars, and a big lopsided heart. "Dear Miss Jasmine, my name is Kaylin. I am 11 years old. My mom said I should watch you, even though it was grown-up TV because you were brave and didn't yell. She said that's rare. I like that you didn't say things to be mean. You said them like you had to. My dad worked at a place that didn't pay him for 3 weeks. We had to move. My mom cried a lot. I wanted to say thank you. I think you were standing up for people like us." Love, Kaylin M. Jasmine didn't cry. She just read the letter again, and again. Each word landed with the weight of something deeper than politics, something real. She folded the letter carefully, placed it beside the photo of her Uncle Ray, and sat back in the chair. The phone buzzed. A text from Daria. Final count. 9.2 million views from the official feed. Every major network's picked it up. Jasmine barely looked. She'd been on camera before. She'd faced crowds, sparred with pundits. But this was different. Not because a man stumbled, but because a girl named Kaylin had watched and believed it meant something. Jasmine grabbed a pen and scribbled a line on the hotel notepad. Not a reply. Kaylin hadn't left an address. But a reminder. Truth isn't the loudest voice. It's the one that keeps standing when others fall. She tucked it into her briefcase, just behind the now creased folder she had carried to the podium. That folder wasn't going into storage. It wasn't a relic of a single night. It was a compass. Because the truth wasn't just in those documents. It lived in names. Ray, Julius, Daryl, Yolanda, Kaylin. Jasmine Crockett didn't show up to take someone down. She showed up for the ones who never got to stand up. The ones whose names never made the news. Whose pain had been sanitized out of existence. She knew the headlines would eventually move on. The cameras would leave. The noise would return. But this time, something had shifted. A country tired of shouting had finally paused and listened. Jasmine turned off the light, placed Kaylin's letter on the nightstand, and lay back. Tomorrow would come fast, but she'd be ready.